Come on. I think we're good. Somebody want to talk?
Sure.
I think we're good. Oh boy, I hate how
A
much
little bit delayed.
you're good.
We got it.
Is this our new toy?
Just not on a ladder. They
Yes.
finally made a part so I could put it on a nice one. Yes.
Ladder's been replaced.
Sweet.
Okay, so we're gonna call to order tonight at 6:30. We will start with a reading of the Open Public Meetings Act, which says, the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which time any business affecting their interest is discussed and acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act and Board of Education Policy 0162, the Board of Education of the Borough of Bound Brook has caused notice of this meeting to be posted in the board office and at Bound Brook High School, and mailed or faxed to the Courier News, Bound Brook Borough Clerk, South Bound Brook Board of Education, and any person who has requested individual notice and paid the required fee. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Standing to the left, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. For agenda item 1.4, resolved that the Bound Brook Board of Education designates Rasha Nasser as the acting board secretary for the July 18th, 2022 Board of Education meeting. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mrs. DeFazio. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Rasha, the floor is yours. Can you do a roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Bell,
Here.
Ms. DeFazio,
Here.
Mr. Dawson, Ms. Casino,
Here.
Ms. Lima, Mr. Minhas, Ms. Gibson,
Here.
Ms. Rusmana, Mr. Zappa,
Here.
Mr. Januzzi.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. For my president's comments, just a few brief updates. It's been the better part of a month since we all got together. Made it through graduations. I hope you're all enjoying the first part of your summer, as is everybody at home. The primary activity I think we've been engaged in as a board really has been negotiations with the BBEA. We're continuing to meet regularly with them and working through our combined proposals. We have another meeting, I think, as a negotiations committee tomorrow, tentatively, and then a regroup meeting with the EA on Wednesday. So just continuing to try and make progress there with the goal continuing to be to have a contract, mutually agreeable contract in place before the school year starts. In addition to that, I think we need to try and plan a board retreat, as we've been talking about for the last couple of meetings. After speaking with Dr. Freeman late last week, we're thinking about reaching out to School Boards Association to have Gwen potentially come in and do a facilitated session with us, go through where we are in our strategic plan, help us set some goals for the coming school year, maybe do a board evaluation. So expect an invitation or at least a request for your availability within the next week or so that we can start to target some dates and get that on the calendar. I think that's all I will offer for my president's comments this evening. Do we want to move on to the superintendent's report? Or Dr. Mormau's presentation up first, correct?
Yes, Dr. Moore.
Doctor?
Hello, everybody. You guys are welcome to come down here.
The more grades I get, the shorter the little reader.
everybody. So as you guys know, the state of New Jersey requires school districts to report out twice to the board all HIV numbers as well as violence and vandalism numbers for the school year. So you heard from me last in early winter with the mid-year report, and now this is the full year report for HIV violence and vandalism. Okay, so first, our district totals. We're in person all year, so that's reflected in the difference between this year and last year. We're getting more towards our numbers pre-pandemic. And as I said, the last time we had a professional in from the PSA, Principals and Supervisors Association, to train myself, our administrators, and all of our HIV specialists on protocol procedures, how to interpret the law, et cetera, training. So that was very helpful. Okay, so now we're going to break them down school by school. Bound Brook had 19 investigations, 11 were confirmed, getting close to the 1920 numbers. Community had 31 investigations with 10 confirmed HIVs. Smalley, grades 3 through 6, as you know, 23 investigations, 11 confirmed HIVs. And pre-K through grade 2, we did not have any investigations this year, although I did just get something across my desk. So you guys will be seeing that soon. But you saw overall, our numbers were down from 2 years ago with HIV overall. Any questions on HIV before I move on to violence and vandalism? Yes.
Actually, too. So the first one, the relative percentage of cases that seem to be confirmed, oddly, is almost identical between 2019 and 20 and 21, 22. Is that indicative of how that relationship has been historically? Is it stabilizing, or does that not tell us anything?
My opinion on that would be that's how it is historically. Yeah.
Okay. So that's good to know. And then my other question is, are there, since we have to obviously publish information to the state, are there any available resources that we could compare the statistics in our district to surrounding areas?
Or like same size district.
Yeah.
I'll definitely look into that and see how that.
Perfect.
See how it's fair.
I have a
Yes.
question. The categorizations of the HIBs, are they ever crossed over? Is there ever like a vandalism and substance, weapons and substance, where it would be two hits for the
same
right?
crime.
Exactly.
We try to keep it one hit at a time.
Okay.
If something else develops during the investigation,
Okay.
what we found that it's cleanest to begin another separate investigation
I
on
see.
what came up,
Okay. Okay.
because too many blurred lines when you try to do it all at once.
So if a student falls into two of these, then it would be two separate HIBs
Yeah.
for that same student. Okay.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
sure. Okay, on to violence and vandalism. So district-wide, we had 19 incidents total of violence and vandalism, and then I don't know why I have 19 incidents total. It's more than that. Sorry about that. But this listing also includes the confirmed HIBs. Wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're in the number.
I'm in high school. I thought it was district-wide. Okay. All right, so that's the high school. But but still 19 incidents total is still off. Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's okay, we'll ignore the totals. You can speak to the details.
Yeah. This was pre-vacation where I put this together. All right, so community, we had 6 incidents of violence, 2 incidents of vandalism, 2 incidents of substances, the 10 confirmed HIBs. Also at community, we had 36 other incidents that led to removal from school.
Just those are suspensions or expulsions.
Yes, yes. That didn't, 36 of those incidents that led to suspension that didn't fall into those above categories.
So when you say like 7 incidents, is that the total number of violence, vandalism? Because
It should have been.
So is this in Kingston when there's
Yeah,
crossover,
Yeah.
like,
those totals are.
like 2 of those, like a vandalism and a substance went with the violence, so that was all one incident? Is that maybe?
No,
does
those
that
are all
line up?
separate. Those are all separate incidents.
Okay.
So there were 6 total of violence, 2 total of vandalism, and so on down the line.
And there were 36 at the middle school that led to suspension or expulsion.
Yeah, so we took a look at that today, because it's a significant number.
Yeah.
The first one is, improper conduct during a fire drill, to a significant level, something that the teacher or the administrator could not put out right away. So it led to that. Yeah, so they were all, I guess, acts of insubordination that didn't fit into one of those categories.
I thought we had asked a while ago, correct me if I'm, Mike, I get you. We had asked for like the board, like I thought that we were getting like reports when people were getting suspended, that we were supposed to get that information so that we could, you know, because at one point the board felt that they were relying too heavily on removing kids from school, because that was not something we wanted to see. So I don't know what happened to that.
Something that we actually started to talk today, when we use these numbers, we're going to put a protocol in place where.
Because I know we had asked a while ago, because there was some 10-day suspension.
Yeah, I think at that point, we started to get a report of only the 10-day suspensions, which wasn't exactly what we asked for.
Yeah, because that's a
Yeah.
lot of, I mean, that's a lot of days.
We're going to put something in place where we report out and we're going to work on the actual length of suspensions, number of suspensions, and interventions we can put in place.
Right, because if we call ourselves restorative justice,
Right.
that doesn't look very restorative,
Right, and we're
you
gonna-
know?
We talked today, we're gonna put a plan in place where we start to put interventions in place so we can be more restorative rather than putting kids out of school, because we know what that does.
Right, it makes it.
puts kids behind. You know, and if you do it repeatedly, you're not really changing any behavior, you know, so we have to change, look at it and change what we're doing and put some more interventions in place so we can kind of change time.
Okay. I think it would be helpful too, on the verbiage of removal of how that's identified, right? So if it's an expulsion.
Just so you know, the expulsion piece, that it is an expulsion, it would be suspension.
Suspension,
It's
okay.
still out of school because expulsion means that they couldn't come back,
Right,
and that would have to come before the board.
okay, okay. So that's not included in that number?
No.
Okay.
I don't think we've ever
I don't.
spelled.
You really can't.
Yeah, it's really, trust me,
So
my
I
son
have a
Joe is
question.
right on
Going
that.
back to the previous screen, the 36 instance, you had mentioned one. What are the other ones?
Insubordination and stuff like that. Big conduct, that doesn't fit under those things.
I actually put it on my phone.
Now it's a full.
Another one, misbehavior during fire drill. Another one, so there's 3 right away for fire drill, 4. Another one. Inappropriate touching. Student filled up a rubber glove with water and threw it at another student, I believe in the hallway. So this led to an out-of-school suspension. So,
All right, I mean, we get the idea, just things that, but we definitely need to address it. I'm not sure. This is-
okay. So moving on. Smalley, grades 3 through 6, did not have any incidents of violence, vandalism, or substances. They just had the confirmed HIVs. And Lafayette had 5 incidents of violence. Two of those same other incidents that led to removal.
What were they?
I have them here, I could look them up and
Could you send them to me?
sure.
Thank you.
I'll send them to Dr. Freeman.
Yes.
to get
I
it.
appreciate that.
When we say violence, are we talking like fights in school? Or other?
It could be that, and again, I could take a look at what they were.
I'm just wondering if it's Smalley had 0, that's amazing. For a school in the 6th grade to have no fights. Being a 6th grade teacher, that's improbable.
I'll work with Dr. Freeman on putting something together for you guys to look at.
Would it, I don't know if this is too much to ask, but if we notice incidents happening at the elementary level, is there a way to track if the same student is committing the same types of acts?
We're able to do that.
Okay,
Yeah, the Genesis does that.
okay,
For the principals, so the principals have that right in front of them.
okay.
All right. So I also put something together, and Tom, I see my download's not there anymore.
Close it to show.
A couple of meetings ago, you guys had asked about HIV procedures. So I put together, this is what, yes, perfect, thank you. So this is, I just want to go through this briefly. This is what we use to train our teachers in HIV and other staff. So we talked about the definition, and we focus on what's underlined. Sorry that it's so small. We really focus in on, when we're doing these investigations, any actual or perceived characteristics such as race, color, religion, etc., or a mental, physical, sensory disability, or any other distinguishing characteristic. So we try to focus in on that. We found this not to be an easy thing, how to classify HIVs, founded or unfounded. The principal may have one opinion, the specialist the other. I might have a different one, but at the end of the day, we talk about it and we come to a resolution. Okay, here's your policy of reporting. So this basically says any employee has to report it right away. You see something that you think is an HIV, you report it right away. You call the office, you go see the principal, and then you have 2 days to follow up with the written report. And we say no emails, no messages. We're clear with the teachers, let them know. Let the administrators know. Okay, this is what the written report looks like. By the end of the reporting day, the principal gets in touch with the parents to say that your child may have been in an act of HIV. No more information is given until the investigation is completed. But we make them aware because we'll be interviewing their children. Okay, as you guys know, each school has an anti-bullying specialist. They're the chief investigator, interviewer. I'm the anti-bullying coordinator. I get to see the consistency across the board, all schools. The school safety climate team meets twice a year to talk about trends in HIV, but it doesn't just end at HIV. They talk about violence and vandalism. They talk about what the trouble spots are in the school and what remedies can be made to make things safer for everybody.
Dr. Norma, is there representation from each building, or are those conducted building by building?
Those are conducted building by building with parent, administrator, teacher, student, counselor, administrator, I think I said. And then as far as HIV goes, we meet monthly, the HIV coordinator and the HIV specialists to talk about all HIV trends. Okay. The protocol of the investigation, the timeline. The big number is the specialist has 10 days to come to a conclusion, to finish the investigation and come to a conclusion, 10 school days, not including weekends. So we adhere to that, and we make the conclusion, and then you guys hear about it at the next board meeting.
And just in terms of that timeline, in terms of parent contact, they would have been contacted at the outset of the investigation, and they would not be contacted again until the board has both reviewed and approved the recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's an extended period of time between their first contact and their final.
Correct. Okay, and you guys know that we do the Week of Respect, School Violence Awareness Week. These are all initiatives to be proactive with the violence.
Have you noticed any of the numbers that keep coming down during the month of October because of those initiatives?
I think it slowly ramps up. September, October gets a little bit more, and then yeah. So, but I think they're good things. I think the students appreciate them. They get involved. You know, best practices to get them involved with these. So, awesome. All right. I thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Sorry about those numbers.
No worries, no worries.
I think it resized when you hit the download button. It probably went from like bullet points to I don't know what it's called. From bullet points to from bullet points to the number of points.
All right, we are up to committee reports, and I think our committee meeting schedule has been a little bit disrupted by the end of the year, though. I imagine we'll want to get those back on the meeting, so committee chair, back on the calendar. So committee chairs, just please work with your committee members and our administrators to make sure that we can get something on the books in the very near future. I do think we had an operations committee meeting earlier this evening.
Yes,
Roger, do you think you feel comfortable going through some of those highlights?
absolutely. First of all, I want to thank all of our participants. Dr. Friedman, I want to say, you're doing this well, and I appreciate your candor and your how success of a meeting we had. So that really means a lot.
Thank you.
We talked, some of the, as all of you know on the board, I harp on, you know, our supportive agreements and how wonderful our police are and how we like to have them involved into the district. So we discussed that. I think there's a really good up and running team from the department as well as from the school system here under the leadership of Dr. Friedman. I think they're really, it sounds like there's some really good establishment of some ground positions and opening up of new opportunities between both positions. So I was really happy to hear that. We updated some projects in the district, talked about some things that were coming up, as well as a couple different positions, one being the interim BA and one career in industry partner advisor. We talked about very, very thorough, which I was very happy to hear about. And we were able to meet, before I end my comments, we were able to meet one of the officers of the chief's team. And I walk out of that meeting feeling very secure in our future operations endeavors. So
It's great. Thank you, Roger. Any questions from the members about Operations Committee? The only thing that I would add is, as Roger mentioned, you'll see information about the interim BA as well as the shared service agreement with the borough for the SLEO 3. Those were both discussed in detail during operations, and I think our conclusion from the Operations Committee was in favor of approving both.
absolutely, absolutely.
And just a quick question in terms of, so why going with an income kind of thing? I mean, is that usually how?
Until we find someone.
Till we find.
Okay.
We're
So
looking
you're
for
still
one, but
looking.
they're not easy to come by.
So that's why it's a per diem, salary.
Correct. Yeah, we had an immediate need there starting on July 1, while the administration looks for a permanent replacement, which I believe interviews are expected to begin this week. Is that correct?
Yes.
Any other questions or comments from operations? Okay, we are up to item number 4. This is open to the public for agenda items only. Any questions from the room? No? Do we have any questions online? You know you have the power.
Do I?
You do.
That's something I should learn.
You've been knighted.
Like, yeah, you're it.
Double check, because I know I screwed that up. That's good. Open to the public. Alrighty. I went back to my email from when Tom sent it to me. There are no questions for open to the public.
Oh, I have the forms here, just,
There you go. So if you open one of the forms and then you click on responses, it'll show you if anybody's actually.
yeah, I'm just trying to figure out the best way to figure out
Which form?
which form I'm supposed to find, 'cause
That's why I went to my email.
the title is cut off before the date.
We'll work on that.
Let's put the date first.
Yeah. Okay, so we're done with item number 4. We are up to 5.1, approval of minutes. So resolved that the Bound Board of Education approves the minutes for the following meetings, regular and executive meeting minutes for June 20th, 2022. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mrs. DeFazio. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Zupko. Any discussion, questions, or amendments
Abstentions.
or abstentions? Fair point. Okay. Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Val,
Yes.
Ms. DeFazio,
Yes.
Ms. Pacino,
Yes.
Ms. Lima,
Yes.
Mr. Minhas,
Have to abstain. How's that?
Ms. Masin,
Yes.
Mr. Zupko,
Abstain?
Mr. Januzzi,
Yes.
The motion carries. We are up to item 6.1, resolved that the superintendent recommends for approval the resolutions as outlined in personnel resolutions under district and high school. This is 6.2 through 6.29.
Yeah, that was a big
You guys have been busy. Can we have a motion?
motion.
Thank you, Mrs. DeFazio. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Guzino. Any discussion?
Yeah, obviously there are a lot of people leaving and a lot of, how are we as far as covering the people who have left? Are we still looking? How's that going?
Pretty good shape.
eight.
8 remaining positions out of all those that left between the end of the year and now, we only have 8 open positions.
And how many of those are classroom teachers? Most of them?
Yes, and then we have maternity leaves, so they're only long-term leave.
So that 8 plus maternity leaves?
The maternity leaves are tricky because it depends on the amount of time that they're gone, so we're working to coordinate overlapping some of the
Okay.
leaves and piecemealing some things, right? But they're gonna be the hardest ones to fill because nobody wants to work for just a small amount of time.
I know at one point, Taryn would report to us, like when there were a lot of people that leave, we were able to ask her questions as to, the exit interviews and stuff like that. I know we don't read, but she would kind of, can we still continue with that? 'Cause-
Yes. Yes, she's actually putting all that together now, so we'll have something for you probably by
Sorry.
I have a question on 6.8, the appointment for, it's supposed, for the school psychologist starting July 1st. So are they working in the summer?
Yes,
Probably doing IEP stuff. I'd imagine they'd be doing IEP stuff.
Correct.
Right, yeah.
Any other questions?
So much.
6.1 as well.
Mhm.
It's revised a new position, registrar assistant.
yes.
What's the job? What is that job description?
I can provide that for you, but it's basically due to the increased number of students registering. Marisol needs an additional pair of hands. So, she oversees all registration in the district. So it's just, verifying their paperwork, contacting the previous schools, making sure that their residents in Bound. We needed someone who's bilingual to also assist because the number of bilingual parents that we have.
How are our numbers? Are we going up again? Are we kind of consistent?
Well, we're just entering into August, which is where we usually go up drastically. They have been enrolling students pretty much every day though. So yeah, I don't have an exact count of numbers, but I would say it's consistent with how it has been. We haven't seen a dramatic increase. The numbers that we have been watching have been preschool and kindergarten. Our preschool numbers are starting to climb. Kindergarten hasn't been as hard hit this year yet. But August is the big time. It's usually like, mid-August till the start of school is when we really hit. And last year we went into October. So it's probably gonna increase, but we'll start, taking a closer look at those numbers and letting everybody know. We did add a couple of sections, at the elementary, specifically at Smalley and at community middle school. So that was the increase.
Do we have any more space for, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it always is, like.
Well, we're
We want to
full.
have, so all
We're
the
full.
classrooms are being used as classrooms.
Correct. Yes.
Are we still doing like art on the cart? They don't have, like,
So no, we're right now, I want to say at all of the buildings, we do have a designated art room. We're not out of those spaces yet. However, we do have, for example, Smalley will have 2 art classes going on at a time. So one will be on a cart while the other one's in the art room, vice versa. So, but we do not have, as far as I'm aware, besides at The annex, we might have 1 or 2 open classrooms, but now have been taken over for special education therapies and things like that. We don't have any classrooms currently.
I have a question on 6.18. That's the Spanish National Honor Society. That's like a stipend type of.
Correct.
And then on 6.21, with the employment extracurricular employment athletics. I just wanted to see, because I don't know if it was the salary set for the people on here. It looks like they're on it's the same position, and it's the same column 2 or whatever that is, but it's a different amount.
One may have experience.
It's not that updated in the position.
Right,
So
let
is
me just
that
see if I can
like
open
based
this
on
up.
the 310, because there's other numbers there, 310, 710.
Right, let me just see if I can look it up.
They share respectively.
All right, so, it's a shared position, I'm sorry. The top candidate and the bottom candidate, if you look at what they're doing, one is filling the position 7/10 of the time, the other one is 3/10 of the time.
So that's what the.
Correct, so it's a division of the stipend.
Oh, okay.
Took me a minute to pull it up on the screen.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, can we do a roll call, please?
Mr. Val,
Yes.
Ms. DeFazio,
Yes.
Ms. Casino,
Yes.
Ms. Lima,
Yes.
Mr. Midlas,
Yes.
Ms. Hassan,
Yes.
Mr. Zepko,
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi.
Yes. So the motion carries. We are up to number 7.1. Resolved that the superintendent recommends for approval the resolutions as outlined in personnel resolutions under middle and elementary schools. This is 7.2 through 7.18. I have a motion.
Motion.
Thank you, Mrs. DeFazio. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Zupko. Discussion?
I guess it's going back to personal, every year we always have kind of fun. Are we losing this, is it the same percentage of teachers that are leaving each time? Like, how does this compare to, previous years? If we can keep track of that kind of, because one of our goals is retention,
And we are keeping track of that, we do
right,
have all
so,
that
so
data.
yes.
It's comparable to years past. I mean, the difficult situation right now is you can go to the school district right next to us and make more money. So they're shopping around for jobs. And a lot of the people who are leaving are fantastic additions to our staff. It's just that they can find something closer to home for a little bit more money. So it's, it's not just us, it's everywhere. Because we've had a lot of conversation in our assistant superintendent's roundtable about that. It's very hard. And even we're finding with interviewing for every candidate that we interview, they're not letting us know right away. They're going on 6, 7 other interviews and they're taking the best offer on the table. So it's going to be harder and harder to retain people.
I know some of them said something about commuting and stuff like that, some.
Commuting, closer distance to home, right, correct. Some are, we have a couple that are, childcare. So the cost of childcare has increased. So if they can work closer to home or in the district that their child's going to, everybody has their different reasons. I don't see it as an alarming rate as, we're sitting here saying, gosh, we're much higher than we've ever been.
All right.
Yeah. And it was expected. I mean, it's not, like I said, it's everywhere,
Right.
unfortunately.
Yeah, and by everywhere, not just teaching. So in the broader economy, you hear the great resignation in the newspapers, but I can tell you at my own job, trying to hire people at this point, it's so difficult. You get a limited number of resumes. By the time you make a selection on a candidate, they've already gotten 6 other offers. So it's a generally very competitive labor market that we're working into here. And on your other point about reporting, I do think this is something that we talked about early on in our HR committee, but I would ask that in committee, we come up with a vision of what we think the board should be seeing on a monthly or bi-monthly basis whenever we're meeting, and then work with the administration to fulfill that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is more of like an end of the year, you know, like this time of year, okay, how many people have left the district, chosen to go somewhere else? And like I said, what are some of the reasons? If it is monetary, then that's obviously something that we have to consider, you know, in a negotiation, right? And how the salary schedule is done, you know? Are we losing it at a certain time because by that time we're so much further behind other, you know, to look at those, like comparing salary schedules to see how they're organized.
Okay, other questions on section 7? All right. Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Val,
Yes.
Mr. Fazio,
Yes.
Ms. Rosino,
Yes.
Ms. Lima, abstain. Mr. Rittenhouse,
Yes.
Ms. Musson. Yes. Mr. Zupko.
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi.
Yes. So the motion carries. We are up to item 8.1, resolve that the Bound Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in education resolutions under the district and high school. This is 8.2 through 8.7. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mrs. DeFazio. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Discussion?
Glad to see robotics continuing to chug along. I mean, they already have a trip for next year planned.
Greatness never stops.
I had a question in 8.4 on the safety ambassadors, so what do they do? I see that they're junior and seniors. What are their, what is the role?
So basically, as it was explained to me, it's a phys ed teacher whose role is, they talk about walking safely to and from school, different activities. So this person goes out and gets training, she comes back, she trains high school students who then go down and mentor students at the elementary school and teach them about the same types of topics. Just walking home from school and yourself.
Okay, so it's just, so they're not, it's not an everyday,
No.
Yeah, there's so many activities per month.
oh, okay, so they go to the elementary school.
Right, the kids from the high school go to the elementary school to work with the students and do presentations periodically to, they're doing their safety.
Okay.
And there was an attachment to the agenda that kind of outlines it for you, the agreement that we had signed for them to be able to go through the training is attached. That kind of breaks it out by month for you.
Okay. Yes, I did see that, I just wasn't sure, because it didn't really specify what they, I wasn't sure whether it was like an everyday activity that they were doing, but I did see about the presentation.
Right, so they'll go down, I think it's in October and November, they actually go and make those safety presentations.
Other questions, observations, comments? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Val,
Yes.
Mr. Fazio,
Yes.
Ms. Casino,
Yes.
Ms. Lima. Yes. Mr. Minhas,
Yes.
Ms. Musson,
Yes.
Mr. Zupko.
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 9.1, resolve the Bound Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in education resolutions under middle and elementary schools. This is 9.2 and 9.3. Have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mrs. DeFazio. A second?
Second. Oh, please.
You win, Lisa. Mrs. Guzino. Discussion.
It might seem obvious, but on 9.2, we do that in Spanish as well, right?
We do.
Yeah, okay.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Val,
Yes.
Mr. Fazio,
Yes.
Ms. Casino,
Yes.
Ms. Lima. Abstain. Mr. Minhas,
Yes.
Ms. Musson,
Yes.
Mr. Zupko.
Yes.
Mr. Janussi.
Yes. Motion carries. Up to item number 10.1, resolved that the Bound Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in policy resolutions under district and high school. This is just 10.2. Have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mrs. DeFazio. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Minhas. Any discussion? It always goes to the right.
I just have a point on this. Everything, like, it looks good to me, but I would love to learn a little bit more. And I know that you guys went through this at the operations meeting. But I also think that, you know, for the next coming school year, to just see what other, you know, what our options are, what other school districts do, what the staffing situations look like.
Yep.
It would just be good for educational purposes.
Agreed. And I think part of the pragmatic approach here, what was on the last agenda was for 2 SLEO3 officers. What we have now is just for 1, and we want the opportunity to still provide the support that we need in
Right.
district while we buy ourselves a little bit of time to reassess how all this fits in our plan.
Absolutely. Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
Do we have the right to terminate the agreement if we are not happy?
Yes.
And then I know it says hourly is $37.50, but they're at number 11, overtime. Overtime is still $37.50.
It will be time and a half.
Insurance. So we would be billed quarterly, a total of $61,840.
When you say quarterly, for the year.
Um,
61840 is for the one SLEO for the year.
Right.
Okay.
It said, I think it said we would be billed quarterly.
No, 240,000.
No, the total,
Oh,
that they break it down into.
oh, yes. yes.
Um, And then borough would be paying any workers' comp or additional taxes.
The rate that we would owe to the borough would be the $37.50. That's inclusive of everything that they're obligated to pay in terms of taxes for employment, correct?
Yes.
So again, just to reiterate, this is a staff of the Bound Police Department. This person does not report into the Board of Ed or is not a staff.
Correct.
Right, okay.
I mean, it says that the contract can be terminated, but you have to finish the year, right? Because it's set for the.
Should say 30 days in that contract.
Moment it was.
Yeah.
Towards the end.
14 days.
14 days.
Yeah. Overtime will be billed 30 days.
Is it net pay on one receipt of the 30 days or
Ask that again.
the 30 days, the overtime, is it?
Pay within 30 days.
Okay, but it's paid 30 days after receipt of the time or?
After working the overtime.
Okay.
So they would be getting a check from the borough
Correct.
and we'd be reimbursing
The borough.
the borough for the cost.
Any other questions? All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Rapp,
Yes.
Ms. DeFazio,
Yes.
Ms. Casino,
Yes.
Ms. Lima,
Yes.
Mr. Minhas,
Yes.
Ms. Mussin,
Yes.
Mr. Zupko.
Yes.
Mr. Janussi.
Yes. Motion Motion carries. We are up to item 11.1, resolved that the Boundbrook Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in special services resolutions. This is 11.2 and 11.3. Have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mrs. DeFazio. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Minhas. Any questions or discussion?
Actually, I have a question on 11 too.
Thank you. That's good.
You knew I would.
Keep the streak alive.
As far as the services, does that take place in our district, in our schools? Does somebody come in? Or do the students go out to a different location for the education?
Mr. DeMarco, for the vision of blind and visually impaired students, that rate, is that for the people coming into the district, or is that for?
There's a consultant from the Commission of the Blind who comes in and works with the staff and the student
Okay.
to provide resources and materials.
I see.
Provide recommendations that we follow.
Okay, so it's not like a classroom type
No.
setting, it's just a resource type. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bell,
Yes.
Ms. DeFazio,
Yes.
Ms. Casino,
Yes.
Ms. Lima. Yes. Mr. Minhas,
Yes.
Ms. Mussin,
Yes.
Mr. Zerko.
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi.
Yes. Motion carries. We are up to 12.1. Resolve that the Boundbrook Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in financial resolutions. This is 12.2 through 12.13. Have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mrs. DeFazio. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bao. Any discussion?
I'd like to thank Phoenix Tube Company for quite a sizable donation. I think that's awesome. To start a career in technical education with RBCC.
I think it really underscores the value and the benefit of the program that Mr. Laporta's really putting together over there. The fact that these are recurring, donations and grants that just seem to keep coming. It looks that way, very convenient on paper, but it's a lot of hard work, to make that actually happen. So just making sure that we thank him in the process as well.
It's a huge number.
Yeah.
And I had a question on 12.2,
Mhm.
on the secretary treasurer report, and I noticed some line items in red, and I was wondering if the secretary would mind just explaining to me, like, non-math, if you could, what the red highlighted items were that looked like we were off track on funds, or that were funds that didn't align to totals that were on there.
Transfers.
Want to approve the budget in March or April, and that was supposed to be reported in the financial software.
Okay.
When I checked it, the total numbers didn't agree with the approved budget.
Okay.
What I did was basically checked it, and reported back to the superintendent and the financial software company, so they are going to take the process of correcting the opening balances to match with what was approved and adopted by the board.
So was it more of a data entry issue, or was it like
I don't know what happened.
Okay.
There was electronic transfer, but I don't know what happened.
okay, so it's just something we need to look into, or?
Yes, that's why Nick was brought in to kind of balance those things, because we noticed early on that there were some areas on both sides of the budget that didn't match. So
Okay.
he was brought in, he found those discrepancies, and he's correcting it.
Perfect,
He couldn't tell whether it was, misappropriation of funds or what have you. So what he did was he balanced both sides, and sent it to the financial information system,
okay,
and make sure it's budgeted there, and everything will be in place so we can move forward with the proper budget.
okay, perfect, thank you.
Mr. Junus, I have a question on 1211. How many LDs are we talking about? Like, is it 1, 2, 3 for the services?
It's one.
1.
So is the position still, like, open, like, are you still looking, and this is just a, you know? until-
Correct,
Until you fill
yes.
the position?
Yes, and this is a fully bilingual candidate as well.
Any other questions or comments? Or is everybody need another minute? Good. Okay, let's have a roll call, please.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Ms. Zeno?
Yes.
Ms. Lima?
Yes.
Mr. Minhas?
Yes.
Ms. Mussin? Yes. Mr. Zerko?
Yes.
Mr. Janussi?
Yes. We are up to section 13, other matters to come before the board and new business. Is there anything that any of the members would like to raise at this time?
I have a small thing. I just happen to be walking around town. I happen to hit a lot of playgrounds in town. And I noticed a couple of things. Over at Smalley, they have like that Jets thing going on. It's falling apart. And also there's one point, it's kind of like, I guess you're looking at the basket to the right inside the 3-point line where it dips down, like definite ankle break situation gonna happen. It's like a pop underneath it. And the other one is at Lafayette, the mulch is becoming pretty sparse. You could definitely use a refill, like at the bottom of the slides and stuff.
Actually, the director of buildings and grounds is actually working on putting mulch on all schools, so that will be done very shortly.
Thank
We'll
you.
take a look at the other two matters, I think.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the business? All right. We are open to the public for discussion. I do happen to have a few comments online this time, so I will read those out. Oh, good. Anything else from the room? No? No? Good. Okay. All right, so 4 comments from the public. The first one, I'm just going to read them verbatim. I noticed in agenda item 6.26 that another new position in this district was created, the SAC Bound Brook High School. The addition of new positions has been happening on a regular basis in the past few years. Another example would be the creation of another assistant superintendent in our small school district. Who creates these new positions? What criteria is this new position based on? Instead of creating these new positions, we should be focusing on teacher salaries so that we can retain good teachers and staff. That was comment number 1. Comment number 2, I noticed that the new BA is on the agenda for approval, but his salary is not noted. Comment number 3, in the May 9th BOE agenda item, section 6.7, David Lepoivin will receive a salary of $72,299 for the 22-23 school year. In the agenda for tonight, his salary is amended to $80,000 for the same school year. This is a very large increase from his increase in the May 9th agenda. Is this fair? Do our Bound Brook teachers and staff salaries increase at the same rate? Many of our teachers and staff have been here for many years, and to my knowledge, have never received a salary increase of that magnitude. And finally, in agenda item 6.6, the previous position's 10-month salary for the 22-23 school year was $80,000. I believe that's a 14% increase over the previous year, approximately $10,000 raise. What is the basis for this increase? What are the responsibilities of this position? And due to the amount of the increase, have additional responsibilities been added? And if so, what are those responsibilities? So those were the comments from online. Does anyone want to say anything in response? Okay.
I know they had mentioned about the salary not being there for the CEA, but it, I mean, it is, I mean, it's there. I mean, that was a simple question that I
Per
had,
diem.
in terms of why it's per diem.
Right.
Right.
So I don't know if that.
That one we
that
can
was
answer.
something.
Yep, it's $700 per diem, correct, that's in the agenda. And I think the comments regarding Mr. Lepoidovin's position, when we got further along in the agenda, acknowledging the significant contributions that have come in associated with the program and the significant progress that has been made, as well as the increases in the scope of that position, I think they tend to speak for themselves as well.
So it's more that he's gotten more, there's more things that have been put on his plate, and that's what.
And he's brought in. Giant amounts of money.
He's brought in over $100,000 as a result of his efforts with his resources. So he's brought into the school, I believe it was $138,000.
Yeah, just in this
Well, that was
one.
just.
Just this one was
alone, and that's
138.
not-
Just for this one.
I think it was
You know,
120
so,
last time.
Correct. So it's well over, I think, 250 in total.
I think the last one was about 120.
Right. So considering that and the fact that we might lose him, it only made sense to make that salary increase, because to be quite frank with you, he pays for it himself with the contributions he makes. You know, so.
Maybe you can explain what an SAC does so that they understand why it was necessary?
It's a student assistance coordinator, so it was originally put in the original budget that was proposed and passed by the Board of Education. We had a person at the high school who was serving as the district SAC. She is bilingual with the, SAC.
The SAC.
SAC,
Yeah,
this was a different question.
Yeah, that's the first question.
Because that's the new, it's a new position, but it's not really a new position.
No, it's not. It was
Reintroduced.
It was approved in the original budget. The increase in the number of Port of Entry students, we wrote a plan for the state in which we are starting a newcomers program at the high school. Being that the district SAC is bilingual, she is going to be moving into the high school SAC position that was created to coordinate services for our newcomers, but also help to increase the services that we're providing for our high school students. Therefore, her position was left open as a district SAC. We hired the district SAC who will be at community school and who will increase the services that we provide for our K through 8 population. If that makes sense. It was originally proposed and then it was,
Just heard the rain.
it was a conversation about, moving the position around.
Right.
And that's what we were able to do because the high school person, the district person was bilingual and we needed those services more intensely at the high school. So that we have the other person who took over that district position and will be focusing more on the elementary grades.
Hopefully that answers this person's questions.
I just got an email, by the way, from a district employee that did under the basketball court is a sewer grate. Apparently.
There you go.
Not going to be easy to make flat.
More investigation required.
Yeah.
But just for clarity, those were 4 different questions that came in from 4 different submitters. I just happened to read them all one after the other.
Okay.
Small, for the jet thing, it's small, it's a sewer grate.
Okay, we are up to item number 16.1. Resolved that the Bound Board of Education enter executive session as allowed by NJSA 10-4-11. Under items, I believe 1 and 3. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mrs. DeFazio, second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bravo. All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Be right back.
You are unmuted.
Great. So we are back in session. Resolved, this is 17.1. My apologies.
Now you have to do, yeah, no, we're good.
Yep. Resolved that the Bound Brook Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in HLB cases under middle and elementary schools. This is 17.2 and 17.2 through 17.4. I have a motion.
Motion.
I'm gonna go with Mrs. DeFazio as the motion, Mr. Bal as the second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Nice try.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. DeFazio?
Yes.
Ms. Pacino?
Yes.
Ms. Lima?
Abstain.
Mr. Minhas?
Yes.
Ms. Muslin?
Yes.
Mr. Zuppa?
Yes.
Mr. Janussi?
Yes. This time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bal. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Guzino. All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening.